just go ahead and send us a text that you can hear us and see us. We just want to make sure that we preface each live that we do, particularly for our live streams, that we are getting the audience participation, one, and then two, that you can hear us clearly and see us. So if anybody could send that through the chat. I'm Jerome Hill. Welcome to the Hill of Justice. Today on Hill of Justice. Mm-hmm. All right. Let me go ahead and make sure that people can.
I can't see it. And maybe other people can, but I can't.
Okay, we got send off. Okay. All right. Sounds good. We are ready to go. So let's go ahead and make this a memorable one on this one. All right.
Okay. Sorry.
All right. That's okay. That's okay. This is what this stuff is for. That's what this stuff is for. All right. 17 years ago, a 17-year-old child, a licensed barber, a business owner, a son, a dreamer. His name is Anthony Chyna McLean. He didn't die robbing a store. He didn't die in some high-speed car chase. He died doing what every adult tells our kids to do. Stay out the streets, get a trade, get an education, build something. He built a business. That's it with you. While other kids were still learning how to parallel park, Chyna was lining up fades, greeting customers, clocking in before sunrise. He was in the chair, not in the streets, but the streets still came for him. College Park, Georgia, Saturday afternoon. Sun out, clippers buzzing. And just like that, bullets, reckless, lawless, and soulless bullets, turned a place of business into a war zone. One argument, one ego, one decision, and a good kid is gone. His mother, Chyna, hasn't even cried yet. Not because she's cold, but because purpose has wrapped itself around her bones. She buried a child. She buried a future that showed up for work every day, worked out every morning, and respected the people who raised it. This is what we've come to, where a young Black entrepreneur can be struck down, not because of who he is, but because of who he refused to grow up to be and be around. Where success doesn't yield you from violence, it just moves the target. And we keep calling it senseless when what we really mean is it was preventable. Where are the leaders now? Where are the neighborhood elders, the conflict mediators, and the so-called OGs who once claimed to care? How loud do the gunshots have to get before somebody stands between beef and the bullets? Chyna wasn't caught in the crossfire. He was failed by silence before it, and he's failed since it. Today, we will speak with his mother. You don't want to miss this. I'm Jerome Hill, and with me is retired Sheriff Victor Hill, and this is the Hill of Justice live streaming. Brother, we're into another heavy subject matter, and this one's a doozy.
Yeah, it is. Let me tell you. And this one hits on so many levels because this is a county where I was a sheriff. This occurred right after I came out of office a few months later. And, you know, there's so many things that I see could have been done before, during, and after the fact. Before, maybe it wouldn't happen. During and after, of course, we're going to discuss that. But I'm going to tell you this. A lot of people, anything that happened in that county during my watch, I always took responsibility for it. Let me tell you why. If I'm at the helm of law enforcement and there's a culture where gangbangers feel that they can just shoot and do whatever they want. That means they have to feel comfortable doing that. Can any sheriff or chief prevent stuff like this 100%? Maybe not, but you can create an environment where people think twice about it. You know, before this happened, a similar shooting happened where an 8-year-old took a stray bullet, and we locked that area down for over a month. 500 people went to jail until somebody told me who shot that child. And I just wish that would have happened in this situation here. I think it could have been solved faster, or perhaps if that culture was still there, perhaps it wouldn't have happened at all. So, like I said, this one hits home on a whole lot of different reasons. And, you know, I'm happy to have Chyna here today, but also it saddens me because it's one of those situations I wish I could have been there to handle it.
Yeah, yeah. And certainly China has a great deal to tell us about. And but I want to go ahead and play a clip first, and it has China in there, and we'll get into the particulars.
And Wendy, that mother has mixed emotions tonight. That's because one of her son's killer is dead. As police say that he was shot and killed during an execution warrant earlier today. His mother tells me that she'd never forget what happened right outside this barbershop. Take a look. You can still see candles and flowers right over there. His mother tells me she saw him lying on the ground right here.
It's a lot of different emotions.
Norma Huff says that's really the only way she can describe how she feels after learning police executed a murder warrant for one of the suspects involved in her son's murder. I spoke with Huff last April, right after her son, 17-year-old Anthony Chyna McLean, was shot and killed outside the barbershop he owned in South Fulton. Police said several men were arguing outside his barbershop when shots were fired. McLean was caught in the shootout. He died on the scene.
To walk up on my son as he lay here.
Thursday, police issued a murder warrant for Allegheny Fall at this apartment complex on Welcome All Road. South Fulton police confirmed to me the suspect died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
My first phone call came from you to let me know that something had happened.
She tells me she's praying for accountability for the other men involved.
We have five. We have one that's incarcerated. We have one that's out on bond. We have one that is on the run. He's fleeing. We have the one today, and we have another unidentified person.
Do you forgive them?
I forgave them in the beginning, but that window is closing more and more as time go on because of with them running.
And I did reach out to police to find out more information about that suspect who is now on the run. I'm still waiting to hear back. We're live in Clayton County. Larry Sproul, WSB Tonight.
Just like that mother is still waiting for.
We have the mother here,
Yeah.
and she could fill us in with more details.
Yeah, trying to kind of walk us through the whole thing and what happened that day. And then we got so much to talk about, to include the uniform that you had on that and continue to have on the day and continue to wear. But walk us through what happened.
Okay. First of all, I want to say, thank you all for having me here, your mother. I don't want this platform, and actually I shouldn't be in this platform, on a platform like this. I'm not a lawyer, and I'm here because I lost my son, and then the fact that the system failed me after I lost my son. So again, thank you all for having me. Again, my name is Norma Huff Pee-wee, but I go by the name of Chyna since my son has been deceased. I've taken his name pretty much because I don't want people to remember his name. I don't want them to say his name. I want them to remember his presence. Okay. So again, thank you. April the 2nd, 2022, 4:00 in the afternoon, roughly, altercation happened that was brought into my son's barbershop. Had nothing to do with the shop. Something that happened between a barber that was there and some outsiders. I guess it had been spiraling for the last month or two. I was not aware of it, and I'm for sure my son was not aware of it either. And it was brought into the barbershop. A fight happened. After the fight, the perpetrators were leaving, and a gunshot erupted. Between the fight and my son getting shot, we live in a violent-free home. My sons, I have 3 sons. They couldn't play with guns. I've never bought them a gun. They couldn't fix their fingers as if they were holding a gun. They couldn't say pow pow. They couldn't even fight each other because it was a nonviolent home. I'm pro-military, I guess you say law enforcement. I wanted to be the person that taught my kids how to handle a gun when it was time. I wanted to be the one to teach them gun safety when it was time, not the streets. They were the area that we were in. This can happen anywhere, but it wasn't a bad area. Had it been like that, then my son probably wouldn't been in that area having a business there. So basically, that's the gist of what happened. He got caught in the crossfire, and people say it was an accident. Well, my son you can never say he was accidentally killed, because a gun only serves for one purpose. It's to kill. When you go hunting, it's not for you to shoot an animal in the leg. It's for you to kill it. Even if it's self-defense, it's not really for you to scare the person. It's more so for death. So anytime you pull a trigger, that's what you're aiming to do. And he may not have been the target. However, again, he's not accidentally dead either, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. So let me ask you this. So your son, he's a young entrepreneur. He owns a barbershop, which is, for that age, is rare. Mm-hmm. So you have these guys, they have an altercation, and they start shooting, and he takes a stray bullet. Walk us into how did you get this news? What was your reaction? What did you do when you got news that this had occurred?
Well, ironically, I had just left the barbershop within 10 minutes before that day. Before that incident. I never go to the barbershop. Oh, he just happened to call me and tell me he had bought something to eat for the house. And he was like, hey, can you come and pick up the food that I bought for you? So it's almost like he prepared a table, our last meal. So his last act of kindness between myself and his brothers was he fed us. And it was the first day of Ramadan that year. So he fasted in support of his best friend. This would have been his 6th year. So I went on and got the food, and I left about 10 minutes later. One of the barbers called and they said, hey, Pee Wee, it's been a tragedy at the shop. Come back up here. I said, okay. Then I said, I'm just like 10 minutes away. I turn around. So as I was turning around, a second barber from another barbershop called, and he said, Pee Wee, come up here. It's been an emergency, call 911. But as he's saying that, it dawned on me, where's Chyna? Why hadn't Chyna called me? But the calls were back to back. But of course I thought about my child. Why hadn't he called to let me know? So the guy that told me, his name was Joel. And I said, Joel, I said, is it Chyna? And he said, Pee Wee, you need to come up here. I said, nah, we close. We closer than that. Is it my child? Tell me, don't let me walk in blind. And he said, yeah, Chyna been shot. And I said, okay, I'm at the top of the hill of 314. I'll be there in the next 2 or 3 minutes. So when I came on scene, I saw my baby laying in front of the barbershop, and I walked up to him, and, people running up to me, but my focus was on my child. I understood that there was a crime scene, so I didn't go trying to touch him, trying to pick him up. I knew he was gone. I had accepted it from the beginning. I sat down as close to him as I could, outside of the crime tape. And all I can do is look at my son. And the only thing that was going through my head was, I'm going to figure this out. And that's all. I'm going to figure this out. And I sat there with my son until, they removed his body.
Okay, and I know that, first of all, that's not a short period of time on a scene like that. But I can only imagine that for a mother, seconds was like minutes and minutes was like hours, in a
I
situation
lost
like that.
track of time. It didn't, I don't know how long it seemed. It didn't seem like it was long. I was in the
Mhm.
moment at that moment. So it didn't seem like I was there for a long time because my mind had went into survival mode pretty much. So I was just trying to, as a mother, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure this out. And that's all I
Okay,
was thinking. So it didn't seem like a long time. Go
so
ahead.
now it's a crime scene. You're there with your son. Um,
Hmm.
the police is doing their job, and now they remove the body. What happens at that point? And also, let me rewind a little bit. And I think you pretty much answered. At that moment, the only thing you were doing was attending to your son, being there with him at that particular time and saying, I'm going to figure this out.
Hmm.
Correct? There wasn't no one
Hmm.
coming up to you with
That's
any
right.
information or telling you anything or anything like that during that particular time. Correct?
That's correct. They were like walking on eggshells because after the fact they came and told me, they were looking at me wondering why I wasn't, because I'm very close to my children. Anybody that knows me knows I'm very close to them. So I think they were staying away from me, thinking maybe I was a bomb or something, like a grenade or something ready to pop off. So
Right.
they didn't really know how to approach me, to comfort me. I wasn't showing any type of emotions that I needed support. So they gave me space. And it was more so because they were confused, I guess, because of how I was reacting. But that's the outside world when you're going through this.
Okay. So now your son's body's been removed. What happened next? I know you got a lot going on. You got to bury your son. You got to deal with family matters and everything like that. Deal with the shop. Tell me about that, and then tell me about how this developed to where you said you had to figure out what happened to your son.
Okay. So 2 weeks passed. It took me 2 weeks to place my son, lay him to rest properly. And I had already said that in for 2 weeks, I'm gonna give it to the cops, the detectives. Not gonna call, not gonna ask for any updates. I have to, concentrate on just laying my son to rest, basically. And so after the 2 weeks, and I said, come the Monday, my son was buried on the 16th, which was on the day before Easter that year, which was a Saturday. That Monday, I had already said, I'm hit the asphalt running come Monday. So Monday, it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I had armed myself with one name, only one name that I knew. Any of the defendants, I had no clue of who any of them were, none of them, but I have a name. So now I'm armed with the name. And I laid on my living room floor. I surrounded myself with papers, with my cell phone, with my laptop, and I went to work. And in 45 minutes, I found out who the second suspect was, working backwards, using social media, using, things that I knew how to get information. So, and that's the person I'll go ahead and say now is a fugitive. He's still a fugitive, but I
So
know
let
who
me
he is, though.
so let me stop you and let's rewind a little bit. Okay. It you're doing detective work, you're hunting your son's killer. This is 2 weeks later. What did the police
Mhm.
do during that 2 weeks? Because even though I know you're excellent at what you do, this should have been worked on by them during that 2 week period. What was going on and what action were they doing?
I'm gonna be honest. That morning of that Monday, before I sat down, I started making phone calls. Hey, have you heard anything? This is for the detective. This is for Sector 2 Riverdale Police because they were the reporting officers on the scene. Trying to call CID, just everybody. Hey, what have you heard or whatever? And pretty much each agent, one at a time, it'll be anywhere between the first and the third sentence. It's like a script that they have. Your son's case is not the only case. And I told them, I understand that, but that's every agent. It's like a script, no matter which agency you go to. So I had to listen to that. I let them know that, I'm not asking for favors. All lives are important, and that I'm not asking you to make my son's case a priority, but I need to know what's going on.
Let me stop you right there. Okay, that's unacceptable. Okay, so
Completely.
let me pitch in what little I know. Okay, number one, I'm an ex Clayton County cop, and 10 years of my life was spent in homicide at Clayton County Police. But here's what I do know. On a normal case, you're supposed to be contacted within 3 days. This is not a normal case, so you should have been contacted before then. But the one thing that I'm a stickler about, you don't tell anybody we got other cases, especially when they lost a loved one. When something like that happens, even if I had to assign someone specifically to that case, hey, your only job from this moment on is to follow all of these leads until we have any other leads. That's it. And you also got to think about, and I hate using the word customer service, but police services are a service that we all pay for. We pay for it with taxes. So the job of commissioners, council, or whatever, is to take the money that's paid for by the people for the taxes and make sure they're getting the services that they're paying for, i.e. police, i.e. fire, or whatever, and make sure those services are maximized. And also it should be done with a smile, for lack of a better term. So that's very, very unacceptable. Now, Jerome, I don't know if I told you this or not, but when this case happened, this is when the DA's office, Tasha, and all of them came at me with the case in order to try to get me out to get Jeff in. And so I was in a suspended status waiting to go to trial. Well, one night on my Facebook page on Messenger, I get a message from a man saying, help him. He said, listen, there was a murder at a barbershop. I know who did it. I can't get the detectives to call me back. So I called him and talked to him. He said, listen, I can't get anyone to call me. I know who did it. And so I called the chief of police and told him, I said, look, I got a guy who says he knows who did the murder at this barbershop. Here's his name and phone number. He said, nobody will call him back. And he said he'd jump on it. So what we see right there is a failure in the system where somehow the leadership in CID, the criminal investigation service, somehow they're not calling people back, or the leadership is not staying on top of this. That I know. And once that happened, I heard there was an arrest, and I thought it was resolved. But now there's so much more to this case now that we have Chyna on here. But I want to bring you up to speed on that.
Okay.
So 2 weeks go by, you start you're calling folks, they're telling you, well, ma'am, you're not the only case, which is totally unacceptable. I can tell you this right now, they wouldn't have lasted long under me with that. They probably would be looking for another job. So what was it that got the spark? Because you and I don't know each other then. You don't know about this call I received and a call I made to the police chief. And I don't have the timeline for that. I wish I would have got it. But tell me what happens from that point there.
Okay, so after that, I realized that my son was just the case to them. But that's okay, because I'm his mother and I'm not a short sleeve Steve. So I'm going to figure it out. I told them, I gave them my word, I'll figure it out. And so I let them know, well, great, I'm retired. I get to come out of retirement status. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to find each one of them and I'm going to bring them to you one at a time. And that I did. So that's pretty much, and I know they can't just take what I say and run. They have to investigate, make sure. But it's just the fact that the detective let me know suspect 2 and 3. She did let me know when I was looking for number 4. She said, well, we are further along ahead because we didn't know who number 2 and 3 was. Number 4, I fell across them accidentally, by accident. But I found out who that person was. And then the fifth person I found out by just doing my homework. So
let me get this straight. You solved your son's murder, not the detectives.
pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, I did what I can do, and then I try to put it in their hand for them to do. But it seemed like they still didn't care. And like I said, I understand they can't just take what I say and run with it. But it took 3 months for the first bolo to even come out. Now my son has 5-6 cameras in his shop, so they had pictures. They had very clear pictures. So it took me talking to Miss Holloway, Miss Katrina Holloway, and she made an appointment for me to talk to, to say, hey, let me get you in tune with the majors and stuff like that. But they still wasn't doing anything. So ironically, Chief Roberts was on vacation with his family in Florida on a Sunday, 7:45. I called him. I know you don't know who I am, but this is who I am. This is my son's case. And hey, where's the bolo? And this was on a Sunday. The bolo came out that Monday. That's the first one, and that's 3 months has already passed. The second bolo didn't come out until the December the 8th, 2022. No. It came out before then, but the warrant didn't go out until, so it's like they dragged their feet. Everything was hitting like at a 3-month interval or whatever, charges or bolos. And one of the bolos that came out for one of the suspects, I'm not going to say what role I think he played, what I know he played, because it is an open case. So certain things I'm not going to be able to disclose. So let me give that disclaimer now. She put out a bolo for that person. And I asked the detective, I said, hey, who can see this? I said, no one can see this picture. I said, if he was in line behind me in Kroger, I wouldn't know who it is. So she said, oh, well, I put that one out because our cameras are messed up or something like that, she said. So 5 minutes later, I got back with her and I said, well, hey, I got you a better picture. And I sent her a picture where you can see the color of the guy's eyes, his teeth, the structure of his forehead. And then I also said, so she said, we need to make sure it's him. Then I sent her a picture of his baby picture, a toddler picture of him. And I said, yeah, this is him. And so that person, shortly after that, they did a warrant for him and they arrested him. That's the guy that's out on bond now. Yeah. Then it went on for that's guy number 3, because you got the fugitive, the one I found in 45 minutes, and then this guy. And after that, then the one that I accidentally ran up on, that I didn't even know that I had discovered who he was, but he was a brother of the second person.
Okay.
And when they went, the clip that you saw was the young man that took his own life when they went to execute the warrant for him, and he took his own life. And then there's a 5th person that they put a bolo out on that they hadn't said anything else about, but there is a bolo out for him.
And there's a warrant out for his arrest for murder. Is there?
No.
Okay,
no, there's not a warrant. No.
Okay, they're just looking for him for questioning.
Yes.
Okay.
He's a person of interest.
A person of interest. Okay, I got it. All right.
He was on camera and we have evidence. Mm-hmm.
All right. So let me describe this, and unfortunately, it's going to hurt some people's feelings. And of course, I'm not going to lose any sleep over that. I think we know that. But let me tell you what has happened in this case and what I've seen in so many cases. My fugitive unit used to have a very good reputation for hunting people down, and they did a great job. But here's what a lot of people don't realize, and that has to happen. It has to happen from the top down. Anytime they were investigating a case, or anytime I was involved in a case, every day I would be on the phone. Okay, where we're at with this? What did you do? Where we're at? and they would tell me where they're, okay, what you doing tomorrow? And if there was a suggestion or something they missed, hey, make sure you try this and try this tomorrow. And I'll never forget, one day it was a Friday, and I was talking to the fugitive commander, and I was asking, what you do today? And I said, what's your next step? And his next word was, okay, well, Monday we're going to do. And I was like, Monday? You going to give a killer the weekend off? And the phone got silent. He's like, well, I guess we're coming to work tomorrow. I was like, yeah, I guess so. Leadership has to make, this is not a 9-to-5 job, people. So, and someone has to be the person to drive folks to make them do what needs to be done. Because if you don't, these guys will go home every day at 5 o'clock like it's a banker's job, and it's not. So I hate that. And that's obviously what you're describing, what happened here. Hey, we got other cases. Hey, we got Ebola. We'll get to it Monday. There has to be somebody, like I've often said, and I even wrote about in the book, I never liked the stuff about lead the horse to the water, but you can't make him drink. If you got to make him drink, you got to pry his mouth open, pour the water down, or get an IV, whatever. That's how things get done. And unfortunately, in government, workers, they know they get paid the same no matter what. So if there's no one there to make them do the job, they'll get to it whenever they can. And that's a lot of what you see in cases like that. And then they allow cases, well, we got a whole lot of other cases or whatever. So no doubt that's what happened. And
well, my son is more than a case, and he's more than a headline, and he's more than this situation. And I'm not a vote, I am a voice. And because they wouldn't give me justice, or it don't seem like I'm gonna get justice from them, then I'm going to become the justice that my son needs for me to speak for him. You understand? Because it's, you're not gonna silence me and I go away. I'm not going away. And my son is no longer here. And I've accepted that from day one. However, it's other parents that are like me that I go to assist them, and they don't know the first step to call the first person or to seek help or to ask questions, because no one is there telling them, hey, because I was ignorant to a lot of things, although I came in knowing a lot of stuff, but I was still ignorant to a lot of things also. So like I said, I'm not a boat, I'm a voice.
Absolutely. I agree. And rightfully so. So let me ask you this. So now you have to assist to get things moving along, which is a good thing you did, because if you didn't, who knows, maybe nothing would be done. Because like I said, I got someone calling me saying he can't get called back. So now we're at the prosecution stage, and now you're dealing with the DA's office. Tell us about that.
You hear the crickets?
Yeah, I hear it. I hear it.
And I don't have a vendetta. I'm not here to bash anybody, I thought, okay, I'm out of this agency's hands and hair. I get to start over. You know what I'm saying? A new agency, a different level. This is where justice come in. And I'm seen more as a problem than I am a parent, a grieving parent, because I refuse to be silent, because I ask questions. I come to them not with knowledge. I come to them with case logs. I come to them. I'm not emotionally led. So they can't say, oh, you're in your feelings. Never in my feelings, because I know you're going to say that it's about the facts. Well, what about the loss? That's something you have to consider. And I'm not non-prosecution. I'm non-negligence. That's not acceptable. It's your job. It's your job. And all I ask you to do, again, I let them know, you don't lose sleep because because Chyna wasn't your child. And I'm okay with that. And because of the fact that his brains was blowed out, my son was shot in the head or whatever. And I say, he might be a case log to you. And I'm okay with that. And this is a conversation that I'm having with the DA at this time. And I said, I'm not even asking you for favors or go above the law, but I'm asking you to do your job. That's all I'm asking you to do. And in that conversation, she's not even really familiar with my son's case.
So let me get this straight. You spoke with the DA herself, and she wasn't even familiar with the case.
That's correct. And it took me like complaining and sending emails over several months to, I got the initial meeting with her, but she sat back. She, you know, as if she was just there because she was required to be there maybe. And, but then, you know, recently I had a meeting with her and she still is very detached. She, you know, she's very detached from the case. All I want her to do is her best. And if she's showing us, if she's showing me, if I see where her best is, then Clayton County, my opinion, is not a part of her mission. Because a lot of other parents that I talked to that lost their sons or daughters to gun violence, they are having it worse than I am. They don't even know who the victim advocate is. They don't know their rights. They don't know the chain of command when it comes to trials or anything like that. So I reach out to these parents and I say, hey, I'm here. What do you need? Let me educate you. Have you done this? Have you called this person? You know, and it's because, again, my son is gone, but hopefully things can change where other parents after us won't have to go through this, because it's hard. I'm glad that I'm built the way that I am, you know, but a lot of parents are not. They're not. And it's sad to see them, you know, they miss their children, you know. And
so let's get into that a second, because we could probably go on and on about the incompetence of the DA or whatever like that. I think we've probably done enough shows on that. But let's go into that a second. You wear an orange jumpsuit every day.
Every day.
A jail orange, right, since this happened to your son. Let's talk about, since we know that the average parent can't get the help from the DA that they deserve, and that they're going to probably need assistance figuring it out since she can't figure it out. Let's talk about you and how you help these people. But let's start with, tell us about that jumpsuit, why you wear it every day as a mother, the story behind that, and the meaning.
Well, it started out, I already wore coveralls all the time. I love, they're comfortable. So I always, prior to my son, you know, getting, losing his life, I wore coveralls. So on his first year anniversary of his death, I said, I'm going to start wearing orange coveralls because of the color for gun violence awareness is orange. You know, you have like breast cancer is pink and lupus is purple. And so the orange is the color for gun violence. So I said, well, I started wearing an orange jumpsuit. But the great part of that was it also looks like a inmate suit. Well, ironically, I had already been to court for one of the hearings. And ironically, I had made a statement saying, we're here for a bond. You're giving out bonds. Can I get my bond back with my child? You know, I'm addressing the judge. And if you're giving out bonds, you know, give me one. Matter of fact, I said, because my son got a death sentence and I got a life sentence without parole. This never goes away. I'm a mother serving life. And I made that statement. And so that's why I wear the orange. But also, if you know, I don't know if you're a hunter. In hunting, they wear orange so that other humans can identify you. So they say, hey, don't shoot. We're not in deer season. We're in survival season. So maybe I walk around with this. Maybe I won't get shot. Maybe I won't be a target. Maybe had my son had on orange, maybe he wouldn't be a target. But like I said, the whole purpose is for me to walk around and people look and say, hey, you just got out? And I say, nope, never get out. I'm serving life. I got a life sentence. And they'll say, why you wear that? I say, it's for gun violence awareness. Oh, wow. and then they talk about gun violence. So it's for gun violence awareness. But for me, it's more of a mother serving life.
Now I got another question. Jerome, I hope I'm not taking up all the questions, but
You're fine.
here's what I really want to hear from you. Okay, so 4th of July weekend, we witnessed shootings all over the United States. A horrible one in Philadelphia on a porch. I'm sure everybody's seen that video. I think Chicago, as usual, had a lot of people shot. And actually, you made an excellent point. You said we don't even have to talk about that. We could talk about Clayton County. We had 14-year-old shot at the skating rink. 3 or 4 men shot at First Baptist Church in Jonesboro. Another man shot in front of Kroger. Another man shot by Walmart. So we don't really have to talk about Philadelphia or Chicago or any place else. But what I want to ask you, as a mother who's lost a child to gun violence, and you see this gun violence continuing, I want to get your perspective on that. But what I really want to get your perspective on, right after you give us that, what do you think could be done to curtail as a mother? Not as a, I already know what I'm thinking as a cop, but as a mother, what do you think could be done to stop the amount of gun violence that we're seeing in the streets?
Well, I used to, when it first happened, I used to say, oh, the idiots got to kill off everybody and they got to get killed. The ones that have the guns. That was my initial thought. And then one day I was driving down the street, probably within 6 months later, I was on 285 and I said, they gave them the guns. Let's put a law in place to take them back and get them off the street. So what I think can happen is that we're going to have to put things in law. Law is not going to fix everything. It just brings order. It makes things a little bit better. No law is perfect. You got the HOV lane. You know what I'm saying? And it's supposed to be, if you got more than 2 people to save the climate. Well, what if it's me and my young child? That's not really serving the purpose, but it's 2 people. You understand what I'm saying? So no law is perfect, but we have to find something that can curb it. If we can save 1 or 2, and I have written bills, and I think that's my purpose. My purpose is not to do a nonprofit organization. My purpose is to be here for parents that would like to reach out to me, if I, for me to help, but not in a nonprofit way, and to write bills. We got to get the guns back off the street, and there is a way to do that. There is a way to do that.
Tell me what that way is. Can you let us?
I wrote it in a bill. I wrote it in a bill. So right now, I got to kind of shop it around a little bit.
I
and
understand.
Hopefully someone will pick it up. But yeah, so I don't really want to go into it right now. But the bill it's a Chyna bill, CHYNA.
Okay.
And what it means is choosing how you navigate accountability.
Okay, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, and then Jerome, I'm gonna let you ask some questions. I got it from the legislative standpoint. Is there anything, and I'm not talking about how this case was mishandled. We all know they could handle it better, especially the DA's office. We got that. Is there anything that you think the police can do on a daily basis that could curtail gun violence? If you sometimes a lot of my ideas when I was policing came from somebody that actually wasn't a cop. And it's always interesting to hear people say, well, you know what, have you ever tried this? And, you never want to be like, well, you're not a cop, you don't know anything. You'd be surprised how much I learned, how many crimes I saw, excuse me, from talking to someone with a fresh perspective that never wore a badge and a gun. Is there anything that if you could recommend to the law enforcement or to the head of law enforcement, what would you tell them to do that you think could help control gun violence?
There's nothing that I can suggest that they do because I don't have an answer for that.
No problem.
Even in our own homes, with us being parents, we can't curb it, within these four walls. So I don't put blame on any, I don't place blame where blame does not go. Even with the death of my son, I don't blame anyone but the person that pulled the trigger that day. Um, so I don't think that I don't have the answer. Like I said,
No problem.
what I think is my solution or my input is what the bill is going to entail. And that's more on the lawmakers level,
Okay.
So,
Okay. Got it. Jerome.
Well, obviously I had the opportunity to speak with Chyna before we did this presentation. And so I took some liberties and did some research and so on and so forth. So Marsy's Law, as many of you might know or may not know, is just basically Georgia's crime victims bill. We'll take a look at it here in a second. And these are, it basically grants victims, certain, especially with a set of certain crimes, just things that they can go ahead and hold on to. In hearing a little bit of her story, naturally, I had some concerns that maybe those rights weren't fully respected. And so, is it necessarily a crime if those rights are violated? No, but Georgia courts have already affirmed and enforced these rights. For instance, in Athens, a superior court found that the DA violated a victim's rights under Marsy's Law in a high-profile case and enforced a remedy. The attorney, the DA, recused themselves from prosecuting the additional charges against the defendant and vowed to improve office protocols. So this is pretty much, there is some remedies to this matter. And if Marsy's Law really got some popularity when you might know of the actor Kelsey Grammer. He played on Cheers. His father was murdered and his sister was raped. And he became a strong advocate for Marsy's Laws in California. And just to give you some background on it, was that and how it really all came to be was that in California, this guy had stalked and killed this woman. An ex-boyfriend did this in 1983. And a week after the death, Marsy's mother walked into a grocery store where she was confronted by the accused murderer. And the family had no idea.
No idea he was out.
He was out. And they had just came back from seeing Marsy's grave. And so, there are certain things that that I found pretty profound about that. In addition, I was at liberty to see some correspondence about the matter. And there are things that the DA can do right now. They can reopen the case and classification and relabel it. The way the shootout turned out to be, this was a mass shooting event. That's one. You could charge all armed individuals involved with this, with aggravated assault, reckless intent to kill a specific person. You can easily do that. You can also go ahead and charge all shooters with reckless endangerment from the surrounding businesses, schools, and traffic areas. You could do that. That's not when I looked at this isn't being done. And
so Jerome, let's educate our our audience on what you're talking about, because Chyna spoke to the DA. She told us this, but it's not on the show. And Miss Chyna was not pleased that there were a lot of charges that could have been brought against these individuals that wasn't. And I believe the DA told you she doesn't overcharge people. Well, let me just say this. That's a lie.
That is a lie.
I know. We know for a fact she overcharges people with stuff, some of the most ridiculous stuff, anything. And then, of course, we know there are folks that don't get charged if they know it. So that's crazy. But let's go into that a little bit so people know what you're talking about. Because when you spoke to the DA, you asked why why additional charges have been brought. What was the answer that you got?
Well, basically, she said that she really want the jury to focus on the more serious crimes. And I pretty much let her know negative, you know, they're supposed to be charged with the crimes that are set forth in the manual. You know, if it says you have done X, Y, and Z, then you've committed a crime and it's your place to prosecute. I asked her, I said, could you please not play jury? Could you please not worry about what the judge is going to say? You know, you have your place, pretty much just stay in your lane, you know, and I brought up other cases where things happened where people wasn't charged with everything, but they were charged with the minor things. So the major thing, they was found not guilty, but they got time because of the other minor things that was, you know, that was proven. So,
and let me say this, we're not talking about, you know, one thing I want to be careful for our audience to know, we don't believe in charge stacking. Stacking is when you just stack charges because you can. But if the charge actually applies, which you actually had charges that do apply,
20 of them, 20 additional.
Exactly right. That actually apply, not charges where we're stretching it because we just want to charge somebody with something, which is a whole nother conversation that she's known to do. And if she's known to do that, she should be willing to put charges on people that actually apply. So we want to make sure we make that clear. Go ahead, Jerome.
When I looked at this too, Victor, I couldn't even understand why she's not filing separate indictments on individuals. You know, that's another thing that I looked at. You know, you take a look at Colt's involvement with this. That's a accessory right there, before and after the fact. You know, so Georgia has one of the most expansive accomplice liability laws out there. I don't understand where we're failing in that.
Well, let me tell you this. Let me give you some insight on this. And this is not making excuses for the DA, but we've never seen this DA try a case, and I don't think she's capable of trying a case. A lot of times when I watch DAs, I watch them at press conferences, and if they read everything at a press conference because they don't have the ability to speak and address the media, where they just got to read verbatim, you know good and well that they can't go before a jury. All of the greatest DAs we know were kind of like Perry Mason. They can actually take a case and try it themselves. And a lot of them do if it's a case that they feel, hey, I want to get involved on this case and try it myself. That we've never seen. This is also a DA that we can't truly say she got appointed midterm, and then she's never had any opposition. So like I've always said, she's kind of like just bestowed upon Clayton County. The people never truly chose her. You know, I said many are called, few are chosen. Well, she wasn't chosen. That's a DA we just got stuck with due to some politics. So she's not the most impressive in courtroom or whatever anyway. You'd be surprised how many people make it through law school, but they're not nowhere in the realm of Perry Mason, and never will be. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's probably got a lot to do with this. So let's take away the politics. Let's take away the corruption or the other stuff that we normally talk about with her. Let's just say she didn't do none of that other stuff. It's not going to be that impressive performance anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
That's probably all point. And well, I do want to show a montage. I thought that this is going to be a very poignant montage, and we'll talk about it on the other half.
You can't erase what was never yours to take. They wrote the stories, but left out the pain. Took what they wanted, but left us the blame. Built their empires, but buried our names. Now we rise, now we reclaim. I walk through fire, I carved the stone, held the weight, but still stood alone. They stole the rhythm, stole the sound, but every beat, every word is ours now. They sat on thrones we laid the ground for, took the credit while we worked more, but history bends, the truth don't fall.
I thought that was very poignant.
Yeah, very impressive.
Could you talk to us a little bit about that and what this all means to you?
That montage was made for Chyna's 3rd anniversary this year, April the 2nd. I sent it to the councilman of Clayton County. I sent it to the sheriff of Clayton County. I sent it to the DA of Clayton County, and I sent it to the chief of Clayton, the police chief of Clayton County. So basically, I was letting them know that they can't erase him because I'm not going to let them erase him, you know. If they're doing their best, and only they know what their best look like, it just hadn't reached me yet. So I was just letting them know that, you know, I'm just waiting to see your best, and maybe there's a rabbit in a hat trick or something. So, you know, so that's the whole thing, to let them know that I'm not going away. Chyna's not going away. And this stuff is real, you know. He's an amazing kid. And all life is precious, whether Chyna contributed to his death, if he, you know, was involved or not, you know. As I expressed to her, they violated my son's rights, his constitutional rights, because constitutional rights don't stop at death. My son had a right to live. That was the 14th Amendment. It was violated. My son, the 5th Amendment, due process. That means, you know, he's supposed to get a fair trial. The 6th Amendment says that he's supposed to have adequate representation. You understand? Denied. He didn't get any of that stuff. So you have violated my son's constitutional rights, and that's unacceptable. And that's where I am at this point. His rights didn't stop.
Right. Well, let me just say this. You're an amazing person. To see a mother's love for a child, to see you wear that orange jumpsuit every day, to see you actually work on solving your child's murder and pushing law enforcement to make sure they follow those leads so that these folks are being brought to justice. That says a whole lot, and you're to be commended. And I'm sure that there's already mothers that are already indebted to you for helping them. And unfortunately, there are mothers that will be needing your help in the future. I just want to say this, and not just to the heads of law enforcement in Clayton County, but any head of law enforcement that's listening. Always remember, anytime there's a murder, it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. There's no such thing as, well, we got other cases. Every case has to be given the care. And I think everyone needs to think about this. If that was your child, would you want the cops to go home for the weekend and go to a cookout? If that was your child, would you want them to get off at 5 o'clock? When you put that gun and badge on, there are no more weekends and holidays. You can pretty much give that up. Anytime something like that happens, everything has to stop until every lead is followed. Sometimes that happens in a day, sometimes it happens in a week, sometimes it happens in a month. But that's what we sign up for when we take that job. And when I was in homicide, I tried to work every murder as if that was my family, what would I want that detective to do? So I want to encourage everyone, whether you're a DA, whether you're the sheriff, whether you're the chief of police, and to make sure your detectives and your investigators are doing that, because they will go home if no one's checking, or if there's no one that they're frightened enough of to know that, hey, if I don't follow every lead, this guy's probably going to get me out of here, which needs to happen if you're not following every lead. But keep that in mind, that never let the job get to the point to where you're so insensitive that you're not thinking about the victims. I think, Jerome, we have met the real live Batwoman today, because the way you hunted those guys down with your son, but not only that, but you're helping other people. Everybody knows that's my favorite superhero, and why. I had a childhood friend that was murdered, and that's nothing like having a son that was murdered. But I love when I see people that, if they become the victim of an injustice, they just don't go and lie down or go in a corner, but they come out fighting. So I think you can go ahead and put a bat on that uniform, because you're now the Batwoman of Clayton County. Right. Excuse that S on my brother's chest. We mean no disrespect to you. But go ahead, Jerome.
No. I spoke to Chyna, and she knows exactly the sentiments that I feel about her, and her march to go ahead and show everyone what intestinal fortitude looks like, and moreover, what strength looks like. People gravitate towards that, and you will see a bunch of other mothers and fathers line up behind her and support her. What we'll do is we'll keep, definitely tabs on Chyna, and give everyone an update on this case in particular. And we'll have Chyna back on once the matters have been resolved, and get her take about everything. Because there's, as she was mentioning, there's a lot right now that she cannot say, and which is respectable at this moment. And we just don't want to go ahead and jeopardize the case that's on there. So we really appreciate Chyna coming on, and certainly, our heartfelt thoughts of how enormous your strength is. It just, as I told you earlier, there's a lot of men that cannot walk in your shoes. And I mean that.
Amen to
with all my
that.
heart.
Amen to that. Let me ask you this, Chyna. Now that we've crowned you Batwoman of Clayton County, unfortunately, probably this week, there's going to be a mother, or maybe perhaps a father, that's going to need you with the amount of gun violence that we're seeing. How do they put out the bat signal? Is there an email that they can reach out to you, or something like that? I know we're not going to give out your phone number, but how can a mother that just lost their child to gun violence in Metro Atlanta reach out to Chyna?
They can reach out to me on my personal email. I haven't set up anything having to do with Chyna himself, which I'm writing a book, so I was soon to be setting up a web page. I'm 600 pages in and still writing. So,
Wow.
And then I have a small pamphlet that goes along, which is another 100 and some pages. So they can reach me, and they're welcome to reach me. I can't make any guarantees, but I promise you that I would do all that I can to help. I have no problem with that. I'm not a gatekeeper is enough to go around, and, whatever I can help you or guide you, even in conversation, sometimes we just need conversation. My email address is Miss Pee-wee, and that's spelled MISSP as in Paul, WEE 99 at yahoo.com.
Awesome. Anything else you'd like to say? Is there anything else you'd like to express before we end the show?
I just want to say that I hate that we're in a civil war, a gun violence civil war. And the lawmakers need to do something about this war that we are in, because it's civil. It's civil. I had the issue with them. You all are making laws to, I don't know if you heard, they passed a law for cornbread being our state bread. And they're fighting for laws for our kids to get high, to legalize marijuana. They're fighting hard for that. And I'm not for or against that in either way. But hey, can I get you to fight for my son to live and not for my son to get high? because I roll up too. But when I roll up, it's at nighttime in my bed when I'm thinking about my son. I
Wow.
roll up too. So like a junkie,
Wow.
I need a fix too. Can you fix me?
Let's leave it there.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
powerful. Let's leave it there.
We can't add to that.
Right. So for everyone that's out there, please, what I ask you to do is certainly keep Chyna and her family in mind. Subscribe, like, comment, particularly comment, because this is once again one of these newsworthy stories. And Chyna matters, and so does the entire family. Just to give you an update, last week we brought in a mother who went through a tragedy herself. And in that update, I received that on the day of the pre-trial, it was a no-show. It was that person did not, and the attorney was not made available, the defense attorney. So we're going to keep on with that just as much as we're going to keep up with Chyna on these matters. But from the Hill of Justice, my brother Victor, and certainly we'd like to thank our guest, Chyna.
That girl.
That's right.
There you go.
There it goes. That'll be. We'll see everyone later. Thank you.
All right. I'm out of a job, brother.